Welcome back to the podcast. I am recording this episode on April 15th, 2026, and tax returns are due, friends. So, this is an ironic day for a conversation around money for me. Taxes have always been one of those things I've historically dreaded and avoided. And so the timing feels ironic, but also very fitting. So, last time we did an episode on financial abundance, I shared something that has really become something important that I've learned through my own work in this area. And that is, money is not just about the numbers. Financial abundance specifically is not just about earning more or having more money. We have talked about our identity around money, how to steward our money better or well for the life that we're building, and what it looks like to become the version of you that can actually hold more as it relates to financial abundance. So, today I want to continue that conversation, but from a slightly different angle. Because once you start realizing that your relationship with money is deeper than the numbers and the spreadsheets and the budgets and whether you can keep things in order, the next question becomes, what does healing whatever relationship you have with money that isn't working, what does that healing look like? So, what would it look like when the relationship with money is healthier and it's not just the language that you use or a theory that you're leaning into, but it's part of your real life. You can feel it in your body. Your decisions look different, your habits look different, and it's really visible in the moments where you would normally avoid or shut down or overspend or question yourself around money. Okay, so that's what I want to talk about today because I think a lot of people understand, at least intellectually, that there are money patterns, that we all have money patterns. And I think all of us in some way, shape, or form at some point in time have a little bit of fear around money. Um, and we know that some of us have avoidance or can get into these sort of scarcity mindsets around the fact that there isn't enough money to do the things that we want to do in life. And there are some old stories running in the background, right, as it relates to our relationship with money. It could even be like not our story, but the story that we heard growing up, how our parents and family talked about money. But what we don't always know deeply is what changing that looks like once we actually have the awareness. So once we become aware, we know that there's a pattern. What can change actually look like, and how do we get there? And here is the simplest way that I can put it. At least this is what I have learned, that understanding financial abundance and creating financial healing, if you will, looks like going in and identifying those patterns and then creating some repair. It's like noticing the patterns sooner, interrupting that cycle sooner, and recovering from the pattern or shifting the pattern to something that serves you better faster, quicker. It looks like uh, bringing honesty into the conversation where you used to avoid. Right? It looks like creating steadiness in your thoughts and feelings and reactions around money, where maybe previously there used to be panic or worry. And it's really about bringing self leadership into the equation where there used to just be really emotional reactivity. Okay. And to be honest, I believe like that's the kind of secret shift and unlock that we're creating in all of the foundations of our life, is this ability to bring self leadership where there used to be emotional reactivity. Okay. So this is such a different conversation when we look at it from that perspective. And um, this, I really make it very clear when I'm working with clients, when I am talking about how important the foundation of financial abundance is, it really isn't about making more money. If that's amazing, and if that's the goal, and if that's what living a life and building a life you love looks like, is making more money so that you have more options and more freedom, I am here for it because that's what I'm about. But that is like the practical side of things. We get to make as much money as we need to meet our needs and feel comfortable and feel secure. Making wise financial decisions, that matters. But if the emotional relationship that we have with money is still unhealthy, then we're just going to keep recreating the same kind of chaos wherever we're looking at our finances or money or abundance, and even blocking the ability to have more, to call more in without even realizing it, right? That's when we talk about becoming the person that can actually call in and hold more. Okay. So these kinds of like recreating these kinds of patterns, it just makes it like still feel unsafe, still creating us in a pattern of avoiding the conversation. And really, I've noticed that um, for myself, even at times, and my clients, you can't even really achieve the goals that you have. You're still in this mentality of there's never going to be enough. So even if you create more, there's never going to be enough. So I don't know if any of these sound familiar to you. Many of them, if not all of them, sound familiar to me and have been patterns I've worked through. And that is why I think this conversation matters so much. Every single conversation I create or coaching that I lean into is because I have experience that, understand what doesn't work, and more importantly, understand how creating leadership, creating understanding, shifting patterns in these particular areas is really the hack to building a life you love. Someone just asked me the other day. I put out a survey into the community asking about, if you could ask me any question, what would you ask? And they said, like, how do you actually build a life you love? How do you actually put this into motion? It's with these kinds of conversations, friends. Okay. So I want to dive in because I think it's important, and I want to make sure that we can create healed relationships with money that, um, don't pretend like we're never going to feel stress around them, that relationships that are realistic, meaning we don't always like feel stress free or 100% confident or everything is going to be perfect every month. We're never going to make a mistake with our money. It means that when we do this kind of work and have conversations here, that money no longer has that same like unchecked power over your identity and your nervous system and your decision making. And again, it means now we can start responding differently. So maybe in the past, if you had an unexpected expense, it would send you into some panic and worst case scenario thinking. And once you are noticing and making a shift, healing in that area might look like you seeing the situation or having the experience and going, aha, okay, I feel really activated right now, but I don't have to turn this moment into a story about failure. So I'm going to give you a perfect example that came up today. I logged on to my banking app. I was looking for a transaction. And when I went in, I saw my balance and I was like, wow, it's only the middle of the month. I have a plan and I know where I should be. And so that number seems low to me. And I kind of like went into this old pattern of, oh my gosh, there it is, never enough. I've spent too much money. I'm failing. I didn't stick to my budget. Where's all my money? But then I got a chance to slow down and I got a chance to really acknowledge the facts of what was going on. I was like, aha, I didn't mess up. I had two fairly significant expenses that I don't usually have in a typical month. One was slightly unexpected, and another was a little bit of a splurge. Um, Spent money on a birthday dinner. Okay, so now I'm looking at the facts. Now I'm checking myself and not creating an old story that I'm a failure and there's never enough. And I get to make a plan, just a factual plan, and not be so totally activated and in a spiral, right? So maybe for you, it's like you check your account and your stomach drops, and so instead of checking your account or being connected to it, you just avoid it altogether for days. Okay, an example of healing a pattern like that might look like knowing that you might not feel super pumped or it might be uncomfortable when you look, but you're going to look anyway, not because you're looking to feel good, not because you're suddenly going to be like super pumped up about the numbers. It's because avoiding no longer gets to run the show. Okay. So maybe in the past you said you wanted more money, but every time it was time to um, ask for a raise or charge more for your services or create, a side hustle, if you will, to generate more, or you want to stop spending so that you can save more, whatever it is, you shrank into a pattern of not asking for what you deserve, questioning your worth, or uh, I suppose, making a less responsible choice with spending versus saving. Healing in these areas could look like, again, just noticing why the discomfort is there and reminding yourself that it's not always a sign to stop moving forward with what you know is the right choice, right? Sometimes it's a sign that you are confronting an old limit that you had, an old limit or an old story. And I really want to make sure that here I make a really important distinction. A lot of us, especially women, have been taught to interpret any kind of discomfort that we feel as danger, right? So when money feels stretched or uh, lacking or or there's visibility around what's working and what isn't working with money, we retreat, right? And we start to make ourselves smaller. We don't step into what we're worth. We over explain why we don't have the money, why we're spending the money. We delay maybe paying an invoice right away, or we talk ourselves out of any kind of opportunity of what could be responsible in that moment. Not because we're incapable of the responsible responses or actions or whatever, not because we're incapable, but because our body is still associating money with that exposure, right? With that judgment, with the pressure, with the I'm going to get it wrong. So, financial healing is not just about managing the money better, like the ones and twos and one plus one equals two and like the numbers. It's also about becoming the person who can stay present in any of those moments without abandoning yourself. And that is the phrase that I keep coming back to lately in any of these foundations of building a life you love is do not abandon yourself, right? And in the conversation of financial abundance, never abandon yourself in your money life, in the business of being a steward of your financial resources. So for whoever needs to hear this right now, do not abandon yourself when the numbers, the dollars and cents aren't where you want them to be. Do not abandon yourself when you feel behind and you're catching up financially. Do not abandon yourself when you need to have a hard conversation as it relates to your finances. And most importantly, do not abandon yourself while we're doing this work and you realize there is a pattern, right? Do not abandon yourself, especially when you notice a pattern, because this kind of growth requires a version of you that gets to be steadier, more responsible, and the only way that happens is if you do the work. You allow yourself to be messy, to notice the pattern, to create a shift. Maybe sometimes it works, maybe it doesn't, but every day intentionally going again to create a new pattern. It is knowing where you need some clarity, right? And you don't avoid it. You need a conversation and you don't postpone it. This is what it looks like to uh, not need support, or need support but not ask for it, right? This is the new version of you where you know that you get to have the support, you ask for the support, you know you desire more, you're not going to feel guilty about it, and you're going to be in responsibility for what you get to create as far as new patterns, right? It's creating structure instead of staying in emotional chaos around money. And I want to be clear. I am saying all of this with so much compassion. I have been there and I still am there some days. Many of us, myself included, learn to disconnect from ourselves as it relates to money a long time ago for whatever reason. And I am personally really committed not only to continuing the work of shifting that for myself, but helping you shift that too, right? Maybe like you, for me, when I was growing up, money was like tense in the home. Like there was never enough money, and there was so much scarcity for me growing up. Or maybe money was never just really talked about in a healthy way, whether there was enough or too little. Maybe it just was never talked about in a healthy way. Or maybe it was like inconsistent. I also know for some families, I have a few friends where money felt like power, and there was even a bit of fear associated with money, right? Maybe money felt like something other people had and knew how to handle, but not you, not your family. Okay. All of that, or some version of it, was part of my story. And I'm sure those things resonate with a lot of you too. And it's that kind of history that creates those patterns. And these patterns will just keep showing up until we become honest enough and willing enough to interrupt them. So that's where I want to go now, is what does interrupting these patterns look like? Honestly, it looks like very small, very intentional micro shifts. And I think honestly, this is where a lot of people miss the work. And I say a lot of people, I'm just always going to raise my hand. We are waiting for a huge financial breakthrough, right? To happen, the better paying job, getting everything paid off, or coming into a windfall of money, or having some huge revelation when we create like the perfect budget and everything finally just clicks clicks into place. I'm convinced, and I know from experience, that healing your relationship with money really starts in some very ordinary moments, right? Again, it's being connected to the numbers instead of avoiding them. It's creating pauses before you go into emotional spending. It's when you tell the truth about any kind of debt or money stress or income stress or fear. You tell the truth to yourself first. And um, it stops becoming the pattern where you continue to say, I'm bad with money. There's never enough money. It starts when you notice that urge to panic, right? And instead you choose to just go gather facts instead. That was exactly what happened to me today. Go gather some facts instead of panicking. So the healing starts when you stop making the current reality, the thing, the moment, mean that it's all bad and you're incapable of change. Those small moments when you notice and you choose something different matter, because every time you choose something different and you respond differently, you are teaching yourself something new. You're teaching yourself that honesty around money is survivable, right? And that when you're responsible with your money, it's not a punishment. This is you get to be responsible and feel proud of that. That you can be with the realities of life and whatever happens around the money, and it's all still going to be okay. And I think one of the most powerful shifts in financial abundance is truly actually in all of the foundations, but it's truly moving away from reactivity to responsiveness, right? From reaction to responsibility. Reactive energy is going to be like, I got to fix this right now. I can't handle this. I'm falling behind. I need to avoid it. I need to try to get this under control. Oh my gosh, I need relief. Whereas a responsible energy says, hang on, let me slow down. Let me look clearly at the facts. Let me just be honest about what's going on. And then let me decide what is actually required in this moment. Let me respond like someone that I trust. And that is a huge shift, a huge and powerful shift. Another sign of financial healing is that you stop needing money to constantly tell you who you are, right? When money is low, you're not automatically worthless or failing. When money is hard, you're not worthless or failing. When you're growing, you don't have to prove your value by overworking or overgiving. And when you receive, you don't have to apologize or feel guilty. When you want more, when financial abundance is uh you're in financial abundance and you see it and you're like, yes, I want more of this. I love the way this feels. You don't have to justify that desire with any kind of shame. That is because you are creating maturity and stability and responsibility as it relates to finances. That's really what I mean when I say you get to become someone who can actually hold more. Because as you start to create that trust with yourself, as you start to heal that relationship with money and shift those patterns, you actually start becoming that person who can hold more. And now all of a sudden you're experiencing financial abundance and you get to keep it and you get to enjoy it and you get to feel what it feels like to be in abundance and not scarcity. Because being able to hold more and creating financial abundance is not just about the capacity in your bank account. It is about the capacity in your mind, your emotions, your choices, and for sure and absolutely most of all, your self trust. This matters in life, it matters in business, right? If you're a business owner, your relationship with money is going to show up everywhere in your business. It's going to show up in how you price things, how you promote things, how you follow up, how you sell, how you invest, how you lead, how you handle things when it's slow, business is slow, right? If you do not trust yourself to handle more anywhere in life, that will show up. And we get to shift out of this thinking that abundance belongs to other people. This is the work, and it is not small work. It touches so much, right? I say all the time, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And this particular foundation is a huge one, and that's why we get to do it together. And I want to say one more thing that feels really important. Healing your relationship with money does not mean that, I think I said this earlier, you're going to stop feeling the emotions around money or the emotions that come up when either things are going really well or things are not going really well in terms of finances. It just means that you're more honest and you're more anchored. We are still human beings. We will still feel stretched and disappointed sometimes. We still can have fears that come up. But when we are healing, that fear no longer runs the show. The old patterns no longer run the show. And avoidance around anything related to finances and money no longer gets to be like a go-to strategy for us. Those are the kinds of things that change. So this week, instead of asking like, how do I create more money? Instead of only asking that question when it comes to financial abundance, how do I create more money? I would also like you to ask, where do I still let these unhealed patterns run the show and abandon or not trust myself around money? Where do I still go into survival mode when I'm confusing the discomfort about whatever's happening with some sort of danger? Right? And what would it look like to repair in that particular area? Okay. Some examples this week could be, opening up the statement right away, naming the fear, having the conversation, following up, making a plan, looking at the bank account or looking at your budget, naming the fear that you feel, gathering the facts, making a plan, setting a goal, asking for support, or just making one clear financial decision this week around a place of grounded trust instead of panic. Those are the micro shifts. They are not easy, but they work over time when you choose to do the work intentionally. That is the healing work we're talking about, and that is abundance work. Financial abundance is just not about getting, it's about becoming more honest, more grounded, more responsible, and more available for the life that you say you want to build. That's the continued conversation I want us to keep having. Not just how to hold more, but how to stay true to ourselves all the way there. All right, friends, thank you so much for listening again this week. This is a super important topic to me and to many in the community. And if this resonated with you, please come join us inside Build a Life You Love. We are always going deeper into this kind of conversation in the community. We spend time together each week with pocket coaching and some really great prompts and reflection tools on all of these topics, and really offer up real support around all of the patterns that shape our relationships with money and all of the patterns that are created inside of the different foundations of Build a Life You Love. And so until next time, friends, I will talk to you soon. Take care.